have the right to know where Kamala Harris stands on those issues? Or should we be kept in the dark because Trump bad? Trump bad. That's what Joe Scarborough wants. He wants journalists to line up and say in unison over and over again, Trump bad, because that's been real effective, right? Listen, he wants to be a cheerleader for one side. That's great, go be a cheerleader for one side, but don't sit there on your boring ass morning show where you tried to gaslight the American public about Biden's mental health and pass judgment on people who are trying to get Kamala Harris to answer questions on something amazing, policy, where she stands on policy.
Ana Kasparian is clearly turning against Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks, and the Young Turks fans are starting to notice as well. They're trying to cancel Ana Kasparian every single chance that they get, and Ana is just very obviously, I mean, I don't know when her contract ends or anything like that, but I would not be surprised at all if Ana Kasparian leaves the Young Turks very soon. It just doesn't seem like a great fit anymore. It seems like there's a lot of animosity between Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian, especially after Ana called out Cenk's nephew like a couple of days ago, and then Cenk went off on Ana Kasparian after that whole situation. Did a video on that a couple of videos ago. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. But that was a very heated argument, and things are just going downhill between Ana Kasparian and the Young Turks, but uphill for us because this is Ana Kasparian defending Donald Trump against Kamala Harris and against this woke media on MSNBC, I believe it is, destroying all these woke idiots here on Morning Joe. Let's check out this clip here of Ana Kasparian going in on leftist woke media who are trying to disparage Donald Trump and actually defending Donald Trump against this woke leftist media. Let's check this out.
But there's a false equivalency going on in the coverage of this race.
Their objectivity actually is not objective at all. It ends up playing to Donald Trump's advantage every day.
In an effort to appear balanced, to appear objective, mistakes are absolutely being made and standards are being applied to both candidates here when Donald Trump is a different animal. He is an insurrectionist.
Well, the crew over at Morning Joe on MSNBC, the same crew that wanted Biden to continue running in this presidential race despite the fact that he was suffering from clear cognitive decline. Yeah, those people, they're furious that journalists would have the audacity of ever reporting anything negative on the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris, because Trump he's a special threat. And so since they've decided that Trump is a very special threat, well, then journalists should hide information about Kamala Harris from you so you don't vote for Trump and definitely vote for Kamala Harris. In other words, they want the media to manipulate you and do the exact opposite of journalism. Don't believe me? Well, why don't we hear co-host Mike Barnicle make his case?
But there's a false equivalency going on in the coverage of this race, in that Donald Trump can say whatever crazy things he wants to say about submarines and sharks and electric batteries, whatever he wants to say. And it's not really covered in the sense that it's covered describing who said it, why he said it, and who the man is, Trump, out of his mind. And always in that story, in the equivalency, the false equivalency by too many reporters and too many American newspapers, there's also, by the way, Kamala Harris changed her mind on fracking. They always throw in something like that in the coverage of the story. It's ridiculous. We don't cover the man for how dangerous he is.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back.
Scrolling away, Cenk. Sorry, man.
Just suggest that journalists shouldn't report on Kamala Harris changing her mind on fracking?
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Is that not an important policy that voters should be informed about? And also, is he under the impression that telling Americans the truth about where Kamala Harris stands on the issues automatically means that Donald Trump is gonna win the election? This is, when I started my career, when I started working at TYT back in 2007, there really wasn't like left-wing media. There was like Fox News, and the right-wing media infrastructure was kind of being built. And I prided myself and the left wing on the fact that we didn't try to manipulate audiences And we didn't try to lie to people or cover up the truth about our preferred candidates or preferred politicians. We didn't want to stoop low and do what the right wing was doing with their misinformation, with the fact that they would omit incredibly relevant, important parts of the story in order to make Republicans look good and Democrats look bad. And now we're in this awful era of conditioning audiences and readers to expect journalists to cheerlead like partisan hacks for one candidate or the other. And if you don't do it, if you don't engage in it, they get mad at you. You're supposed to be my cheerleader. You're supposed to cheerlead for my preferred candidate. What are you doing? How dare you talk about Kamala Harris and how she went from being against fracking to now saying she's totally in favor of fracking? How dare you?
Yeah, and we're now at a place, by the way, I don't think Ana Kasparian would get away with this rant when Cenk Uygur was sitting next to her. He's not here today, and this would have turned into a huge debate. I know for a fact, kind of wish he was there because it would have been some juicy content, but at the same time, it's good that Ana Kasparian can actually get here and actually say what she wants to say without being interrupted by Cenk just trying to cover up for the leftist media. But also, we're in a spot today where the right-wing media and the right wing in general is just much more genuine when it comes to trying to search for the truth. We have people like Kamala Harris, and yes, Kamala Harris, like Ana Kasparian is saying, gets criticized by right wing for changing her opinion on fracking and stealing certain Donald Trump beliefs like the no tax on tips stuff, stealing multiple of Donald Trump's own policies that he wanted to push. She's just taking them and saying stealing them as her own, and she's supposed to be on the other side. And yes, the right wing, the media, and just the individuals out there criticize Kamala Harris for doing that. But at the same time, they criticize Donald Trump for doing that as well. At least the people who actually have a brain of their own, a mind of their own, and aren't just brainwashed to think must vote Donald Trump, must defend Donald Trump all the time. They're criticizing Kamala Harris for stealing Trump stuff, but also criticizing Trump for going more left wing, going more soft on certain topics like the IVF stuff, the abortion stuff, and just things like that, even the immigration stuff and what happened during the last election stuff. Like, he's going soft on a lot of these things, and the right wing is criticizing him for it. Whereas the left wing is just like, no, we're going to defend Joe Biden to the death. We have people like Whoopi Goldberg, who was defending Joe Biden after he pooped himself on stage by saying, I have poopy days too. That's a direct quote from Whoopi Goldberg on The View. It's okay that he pooped himself on stage as the president of the United States because I have poopy days too. But luckily we have people like Ana Kasparian, and they're few and far between for sure, but they're out there still, like Ana Kasparian on the Young Turks, who was saying like, guys, we're just straight up lying to our own voter base. We're treating them like idiots. And apparently they are idiots because they still vote Democrat every time, every election. And the other people who are like Ana Kasparian, they end up like Joe Rogan or Russell Brand, canceled by the left, shunned from the left, because you have to keep one-upping your wokeness over and over again if you want to stay part of the woke cult. Ana Kasparian's not doing that. And she's going to get the Joe Rogan and Russell Brand treatment very soon, I'm sure of it.
The media doesn't fearmonger about Trump enough? Has he considered that maybe, just maybe, the media had been fearmongering about Trump so much, so often, that Americans have become desensitized to it? Has he considered that? Has he considered the fact that Joe Biden ran his campaign almost entirely on Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and it wasn't working? Why do you think it wasn't working? This is the most brain dead argument I have heard on MSNBC, and that is saying something, because there are a lot of brain dead arguments made on MSNBC. But we're about to hear more. So Joe Scarborough argues that journalists who are trying to be objective actually end up helping Trump. So maybe don't be objective. Let's watch.
Even Arlington, you've seen major newspaper outlets talk about, well, how will this impact Kamala Harris and the issue of Afghanistan after he goes? And he
does a thumbs up and pictures.
Well, and just acts like a brute and desecrates Arlington. That's not a time to say, well, how does it? It's. But again, we see it time and time again. For some reason, the mainstream media. What are we, 9 years in to Donald Trump's era in American politics, still doesn't know how to cover Donald Trump. Their objectivity actually is not objective at all. it ends up playing to Donald Trump's advantage.
Don't be objective because it plays to Donald Trump's advantage. Why? Because journalists want to answer a question about how Kamala Harris would handle Afghanistan, what her views on Afghanistan happen to be. Do the American voters have the right to know where Kamala Harris stands on those issues? Or should we be kept in the dark because Trump bad? Trump bad. That's what Joe Scarborough wants. He wants journalists to line up and say in unison over and over again, Trump bad, because that's been real effective, right? Listen, he wants to be a cheerleader for one side. That's great, go be a cheerleader for one side. But don't sit there on your boring ass morning show where you tried to gaslight the American public about Biden's mental health and pass judgment on people who are trying to get Kamala Harris to answer questions on something amazing, policy, where she stands on policy. Because there are voters out there, believe it or not, who aren't partisan hacks. Those are the individuals who actually end up deciding elections, and they want to know where Kamala Harris stands on policy. Simply hearing Trump bad over and over again doesn't work for them.
Does it not work for them? Because while I agree with Ana Kasparian that this is really dumb and it's really like, it's really cheap television, it's very obvious propaganda, you're making it very obvious to your audience that you're just straight up lying to them in order to push a certain agenda. But does it not work? I mean, Donald Trump lost the last election and they were doing the same thing. Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. Like they're using the same fear-mongering tactics during the last election. And it worked. They won. You know, you could say that there's some foul play involved, and I wouldn't completely disagree with you. But I mean, there's going to be, if there was last time, there's going to be foul play on this one too. So does it not work? I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm just kind of blackpilled on the whole thing. I just think Democrat voters are just that dumb. They're just willing to believe it. Like, I think that they know they're getting lied to. They know they're just getting fed propaganda and they just don't care. They're just like, I'm cool with burying my head in the sand. I'm cool with just living in this echo chamber, even though I know all this stuff is just nonsense. Hey, at least it makes me feel good. It validates the things that I thought. So I don't have to get, I don't have to deal with people disagreeing with me. I'm cool with just staying here in this left-wing echo chamber. So while I 100% agree with Ana Kasparian that this is horrible television, it's horrible journalism, all of that, it works. At the end of the day, it just works on these idiot leftists. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with me. And let me know in the comments what you think about Ana Kasparian going on the Young Turks. It's kind of like when the teacher doesn't show up to class or something. When Cenk Uygur's not there, she just starts defending Donald Trump. I don't know. She's so close to being MAGA, dude. Like, somebody needs to send her a hat. Maybe she'll wear it on the show. Let me know in the comments what you think about Ana Kasparian on the Young Turks just defending Donald Trump and destroying the woke media and woke MSNBC. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Young Turks situation.